Yeah, yeah.
I would walk there and sell it.
So let's make l'chaim tak.
Just walk there and sell it.
Okay, let's make l'chaim.
is finishing the second.
Huh?
I think Dachim is finishing now.
Oh, so it's a good.
What's after Nazir?
It's one of the four. Oh wow!
You didn't.
Everyone's gonna learn.
You didn't watch yourself. Seder is
Yeah, no,
like this. It's the same.
Right.
Perfect.
בבקשה.
Take that off. Thank you very, very much. Okay. We have a minig kavua that we prepare for the Seder. It's okay, you get to the Seder, it's very nice. You have the matzahs, you have the wine. Baruch Hashem, the house is clean. You got there. You can't tell the same Dvar Torah that you told last year and the year before and the year before that.
You think I remember?
Mitzvah l'sapeh.
Zaidi told me this story about the Yenu.
Tazoi.
They want it.
So this is what we do every year. Tonight we're going to do 6 Dvar Torahs and 6 stories that I think are a little zugepassed to the Dvar Torah. Every year I buy a new Agoda, at least 1 or 2. This year, besides this, I bought from Rav Yaakov Galinsky, the Maggid passed away last year, Maggid of Bnei Brak. They said that he said when the Twin Towers fell down, he said, I couldn't believe it, that one day I'll be taller than the Twin Towers. This is a little guy. Okay, so as you'll see soon, a couple of nice stories from Rav Galinsky's new sefer.
I met him as a bacher.
Oh, yeah?
He was on the way. He gave a share on the shoes.
He gave a shoes.
He's a fire. Yeah.
Okay. In the beginning of the Agoda, we say in the Pisk of Heilach Manya, which Heilach Manya is really the beginning. It's already after it says the words Magid. L'shon haba b'nei choyden. What does it mean? What does it mean, b'nei choyden? What is the Hagdoda of the word b'nei choyden?
What is the Shota Hafa?
It's not a shayla. But b'nei choyden, what's b'nei choyden? The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, ein lecha ben choyden ela mi sha'oisek b'talmud Torah. If you want to be a true ben choyden is only a person that learns Torah. A person that doesn't learn Torah is not really a ben choyden. They think they're a ben choyden. A jail could be a very big jail. A person could be a huge jail. They can go upstairs, downstairs. They're still in jail. People that are into materialism, they're still in jail. They think they're going upstairs, downstairs. They take a taxi, they take a flight, they drive a fancy car. They're going to here. They're all in a big jail. So the jail has another floor, another place, but they're in jail. Like the Mishnah says, it says Choros al Aluchos, al Tikra Choros al Acherus. It's the obvious in Perek Vav, the second Mishnah. The truth is that says the Rebbe, if you think about it, Rashi says that the Moshe Rabbeinu asked, what's the schus that the Jews have to go out of Mitzrayim? David said, but Mitzrayim tavdun lakim al that the schus that they'll get the Torah. That's why I'm taking out of my Mitzrayim, which is a chidush, usually a schus you have before. But here, maybe she said in the schus they'll get the Torah. So before we start the Agoda, we talk about the idea of Nechorim, which is through learning Torah. Just 2 beautiful stories from Rav Galinsky. First of all, he said that he loved to say jokes, and he would always get people to laugh. He said that he noticed that Chatzkel Levenstein never laughed at his jokes. So he said at first he was a little insulted. How come? And then he realized, listen, it was from the Balei Musar, and gelernt in the Vardok. And in the Vardok, he must have learned that you have to be a ben choydim. No, someone else is going to control my mood.
Yeah.
When I'm happy, when I'm laughing, when I'm not happy. Someone else is going to crush me. Someone else is going to make me upset. The Torah tells me, the Torah dictates. That was his That was his take on that of Levenstein. But here's a beautiful story that Galinsky said, which is mamish a beautiful, beautiful story. I mean, this is mamish a story to share at the table. When the Jewish children, the families were coming out from many countries to Eretz Yisrael in the 50s, were coming from Iraq and they were coming from there was a big aliyah from Taiman. All the Jews from Yemen came in a very short period of time. Israeli government at that time was, unfortunately, most of them were Ashkenaz Jews, Shono Pirish, guys that were perhaps in yeshiva, but unfortunately had very different views in life. Many of these people who were very hardworking people, but all of them were traditional and basically Shomer Torah mitzvahs, were all sent in all kinds of places, and they were given jobs to work, like they say in Israel, and they got these little hints that that the kids shouldn't, they'll put the kids in the regular Israeli school system. There was an outcry from Jews, and the Israeli government said, "Look, it's a democracy. They could, if they want, they could register their children any school. They don't want. So the Chaznish, there was a lot of Gedolei Yisrael that were very involved in that. As Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky said, that the Chaznish asked the yeshiva bochum that they should do something. Don't just sit in yeshiva and learn Gemara. Go out and do something. So they said, "What should we do?" He said, "Go to these places that these machanot where olim are coming in, and go around with a pad. Who wants their kids to go to yeshiva? Go around with a pad, come back, and I'll give it ready to politicians. And I'll have a notepad to say in this machaneh there is 55 children, and this machaneh there's 100 children, and this. Then we'll do something. We can't. The Israeli government won't be able to ignore us. It's called machaneh olim. Machaneh olim, yeah." So they came to Machaneh Olim, and the gates were closed, and they weren't allowed in. So they figured that climb in under a gate. They made a little hole under the gate. Rav Galinsky says, "I'm the little guy," so I was able to climb in. They caught me when I was more in and out, so they pulled me in. They gave me a few patch, and the other guys ran away. So they took me to the office. Who is sending you? What you're doing? So he decided to play dumb. He talks only Yiddish. Ich weiß nicht. Ich red no Yiddish. Ich weiß gar nicht. Ich red no Yiddish. Obviously, he knew Hebrew well. He just played it. So he thought that, what are they going to do with him? So they'll send him home. They found someone that speaks Yiddish. The guy comes in the room, and he looks, and it's like they lock eyes for a second. No, more than that. He was Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky in the wartime ran away to Russia, and his life was saved. After the war, he was able to go back because he had a Polish passport. He was able to go out of Russia easily. In Samarkand at the train station, people were starving. After the war, and even though it was already after the war, but people were starving. He happened to have had that day mazel, and he was able to buy a bag of mushrooms. And there was a Jewish kid that saw him and says in Yiddish, like, he's dying, Pasha dying. So give me the mushrooms. He says, I'm also hungry. He said, you're going now to Poland, another day you'll have what to eat. He gave him the whole bag of mushrooms. This is the guy.
Wow.
This is the guy. He's not religious, but he remembers that.
What happened in his life?
So he says, "Ich will the help from was du willst." Tells him in Yiddish. The guys don't. So they say, "Ma Omer." He finally he says to his friends, I'm taking this guy to every tent. He's pulling him by his ear, and I'm going to show everyone that this guy, they should never talk to this guy because this guy is misukan. Okay, they said fine. He pulls him by his ear, and he pulls him out of the administration office, and he goes from tent to tent, and he talks from his heart. He talks perfect Hebrew, and he says, Jews, you came here. You don't have to send your kids to public school. You can send them to, it's a free country. Give me a name and I'll make sure your kids will go to yeshiva. he got close to 100 names, parents that said, yeah, we really want to send our kids to yeshiva. And the guy is pulling in by his ear until and Kilo kicked him out. Came back to Bnei Brak, and his friend said, oh, you were successful. He said, how did you know? He said, we came back to the Chaznish, and they said, oi, they caught Yankala Galinsky. He said, I'm not sure who caught who.
Most of the kids, they sent to the Shomer HaTzair. My uncle, who's 94 now, the last kid of my grandfather, still alive. My kid go to visit him. They sent him to the Shomer HaTzair. He was 17 or 18. He came before all the Jews from Iraq. So they took him to Tzahal, was just starting. They sent him to Egypt because he spoke Arabic, he spoke English, he spoke Hebrew. Handsome guy. See him now, it's unbelievable. Still his head working. And he told me when we went this time to Israel for the Bar Mitzvah of my grandson, he said that 2 weeks after he was in Egypt, they told him from Israel, come back because they suspect him. They want him to spy in Egypt for Israel. 2 weeks later, he came back.
Who was suspecting him?
The Egyptian.
The Egyptians.
Because, they told him what to do, the Israelis, the Mossad or forever. And I was lucky when I went with my kids. I had 7 kids then, we're 9 people, went to Israel to visit my parents. And he worked in El Al. Security, I don't know. Now, we 9 people coming with luggage, take us hours to check the luggage, to get the passport. He said, give me exactly when you're coming, I'll be there. In 10 minutes, he got us out. He gave him all the passport, we stepped in, he went in.
Very nice. Very nice.
So your grandkids have great grandfather, a great.
Yeah.
Mitzvah aleinu l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim. We say in the Agoda that there's a mitzvah l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim. The Meforshim ask a question, and I'm not going to go back to what we last year in the Shabbos Agoda we spoke about this. Every day you have a mitzvah to be maski Yetzias Mitzrayim. What's the chiddush in the night of Pesach? The Agoda of Pesach of the Rebbe and Omet Tezvov, he brings 6 answers of the differences. Mishak Lavataria, for example, that some places can say there's a difference. Every day, b'schira b'leiv. Tonight has to be b'dibur dafka. Every day, a little bit. Tonight has to be a sipur. And every day doesn't have to be as an answer. Today has to be as an answer, a question and answer. And so on and so forth. There's several tirutzim that the Meforshim give. But Pashtus says that Rebbe, the difference is, it's like every Yom Tov. Say, Matan Torah. So every day you have to learn Torah. Lamai, today is that emphasis that everything that comes Matan Torah, you eat, everything you're doing, you're eating, you're breathing, everything in your mind is Matan Torah. Matan Torah, that's the whole thing today. The whole emphasis is everything. You're eating for Torah, you're drinking, everything. Agam, all year it's that way. The Rambam says that the Chochem Nikar, the Maisa, the Machola, the Mashkei, the difference of a Chochem and a Tippish is not that a Chochem understands things and a Tippish doesn't. The difference of a Chochem and a Tippish is the way they eat, the way he drinks, the way he talks to people, the way he interacts with people. So in the Chag Hashvuas is Nikr, everything Torah. Chag Pesach is Nikr. Yes. Everything is union of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The whole thing, the whole emphasis of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's what we're eating, that's what we're breathing, that's what we're doing. The whole idea is Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. And not only for ourselves, but we're telling it to others. We have to tell it also to others. Rav Galinsky has a beautiful story from the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim had, after he published a sefer, Chofetz Chaim, about Shmiras Loshen. So he asked a few people to go around and sell a sefer. So one of them said, the Chofetz Chaim wrote a ton of Salonim on Teresim, like unbelievable amount of Salonim that he wrote. He wrote a sefer against moving to America. So one of the people he approached to sell, he said, Give me a sefer about Shemitah Shabbos. That I'll go around the cell. But the sefer about Shemitah Saloshin, I myself, I felt not by them. What do you want from me? I should go sell something that I'm not practicing myself.
That's what Rabbi Gorinsky said?
Yeah.
He said it to the whole time?
No, he said Ayid that
Oh,
out.
okay.
Ayid
Sorry.
said this to a
Ayid
couple
Rab.
of times. Yeah.
Oh, not Rabbi Gorinsky.
No, not Rabbi.
All right, I mixed up. I didn't hear.
No.
I didn't hear one important piece.
So Chofetz Chaim told him there was once a poet that owned a lot of the towns, and he walked into the house of a Schenker, and he asked, well, he wants a little vodka, so he gave him a cup with some vodka, some verbeissen, and the cup is greasy, it's not clean. The vodka is like the worst of the worst of the worst. And the guy gets angry at him. He tells his guard they should whip him. He said, "What this? In my town, you're paying me to have a tavern, and that's all that they glad because the guy that came, he didn't care. There's regular customers that the cups were a little greasy and there was stuff floating in the vodka. But the poets cared. Okay, a few months later, there's a fire. Everyone is coming and they're pouring water. Only the Yidela doesn't show up. And the poets, after the fire is out, they calls for the Yidel. He says, "Why didn't you show up?" He said, "I was very scared. Before I have to make sure that all my buckets are very clean. I didn't want to have greasy buckets with floating little pieces. I remembered I got whipped last time." So the poet says, "Come on. That was when you want a glass of vodka. Here it's turning, if you have to put out a fire, it doesn't matter if the cup is greasy or the barrel is greasy, if the water is clean, if the water has stuff, you have to just put out the fire." So he said, "Look, when you have to go teach another Jew about mitzvahs that he doesn't know yet, don't worry if you're clean or you're not so greasy. When there's a fire in Klal Yisrael, we have to teach other Jews. We're going to wait. We're going to wait till everyone's cups are really nice and clean and there's no dirt floating. This is not the way to do it because there's a fire in Klal Yisrael. So even if we're not perfect, we have to teach another Yid." Okay, let's move on to the Agoda.
Did the person know that he was talking to the Chofetz Chaim?
Yeah.
You knew?
Yeah.
That he did know.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good story. Thank you. Good story, yeah.
You're taking notes because you should be telling it over to Jennifer at the Seder.
Taking mental notes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, you can record it if you have.
Okay.
Be able to record.
Yeah, we're recording it. Amr Beloza ben Azariah.
Now that it's safe,
The next piece in the Agoda is Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says, "Arei ani keven shivin shana, v'lo zachise to Omer yitziz b'ratzayim b'leilos. Ad shedorshe ben zoyma, shenemar l'mantiskes yemtzeis chomeretz mitzrayim kol yemei chayacha, hayom kol yemei chayacha la be'aleilos." Because the Torah says an extra word, kol yemei chayacha, it tells you that not only by day, also by night. That means that the Pashtus, until the time of Ben Zayma, they would say Shema in the morning, Shema at night. But in the morning, they would say it with the Pashas Tzitzis, which is the mentioned Tizmatayim. And by night, they would say it without Pashas Tzitzis. But Ben Zayma came along and said, no, the Pasuk says, Kol Yemei Chayacha, an extra wood coil, to say, B'yom Am B'Layla, no. Kol Yemei Chayacha is the extra, is Lahavli Ma'aseh Mashiach. Okay, so before we start, there's a beautiful beer from the Rebbe on this. And I just want to give a snippet of it. There's a beautiful beer from the Rebbe in a Fabrengen that he gave in Shmois Tovshin Nun Beis. Shmois Tovshin Nun Beis. But before I'll set the stage, and based on the last Fabrengen, right? So the Rebbe says like this. Tovshin Nun Beis. Shmois Tovshin Nun Beis. So there's a machloikis here to shine him. What does it mean, loy zachisi? For example, the Rashbats, which is Rashbats is the Chuvas Hatashbet, also wrote a sefer Yovin Shmua on the Haggadah. So I'm not quoting from his sefer directly, but here is Haggadah Shapesach in Pirusha Rishonim. So instead of printing it off my computer, I have it right here. So he says like this. The Rashbats says that most of the Rishonim say, what does it mean, Lo Zachisi? Lo Nitzachti. Zachisi means I didn't have the Nitzachim. Like the Chazal say, Zakinu Rebbe Elazar l'Rabbanan. The Rebbe Elazar won the argument over Rabbanan. Lo Zachisi, I didn't win the debate until Ben Zoma came along and helped me. But he says that look in Rashi in the Gemara, Rashi doesn't say that. And he says that's a wrong pshat. He says Lo Zachisi doesn't mean that. Lo Zachisi means I wasn't zoiche. I didn't have the schus. I didn't have the schus to find the pasuk. The Rebbe points out that these two pshatim are parallel to the two pshatim, which is a machloikes Rishonim, and also later Achram the Bnei Yeshua and the Noda Yehuda, the Gemara. There's two ways of learning here. One way of learning, Chachamim and Ben Zoma arguing. One, that the Ben Zoma says that you have to say Yitzis Mitzrayim b'Yamim b'Layla, but not Limois Mashiach. Chachamim say you have to say it Bein b'Yimois Mashiach, Bein B'Zman Hazeh, Bein b'Yimois Mashiach, but not b'Layla. It's a machloikes. But we're passing basically like Ben Zoma according to that. But there is another pirush in the Rishonim which says no, that we never argued. They never argued. There was never machloikes. Everyone agrees that we have to mention Tzis Mitzrayim, Bein B'Zman Hazeh, Bein B'Yimois Mashiach. Everyone agrees that you have to say Bein B'Yom, Bein B'Layla. The Mishayla is how we learn it from the Psukim. How we learn it from the Psukim. That's it. The Mashmo is Dorish. The question is only how you learn it from the Psukim.
Why would ever mean that the Moshiach is here, so we don't have to say Tzef Mitzrayim anymore?
As we'll talk about in a second. Not to say. So, first, the Rebbe says to set the stage. So, in the Pashtus, the two machloikes is like this. So basically, we have a machloikes if there's a machloikes. I love this. There's a machloikes if there's a machloikes. So if you say that there is a machloikes, lo zachisi, lo nitzach, there's a machloikes, but I didn't get a chance to have the upper hand until Ben Zoma came to help me out. But if we say that the other pshat, that there was never a machloikes, so you would say lo zachisi, I didn't have the schus to bring a raya. But what do you mean to win? There's not shaykh to say to win or to lose when there's no machloikes. So to the pshatim, aloy zachis is parallel to the two pshatim. Is there a machloikes or not a machloikes? Now, if you say there's a machloikes, so b'pashtus the machloikes is on a spiritual level is like this. That bayom is when there is it's beruchnis. It's a good time. It's bayom the oir ayom. It's shine. It's full of light. His life is full of light. So then he can easily climb out of his boundaries, of his mitzarim v'agbolas, of his boundaries. But balayla, when he's in a difficult situation spiritually, it's very, how are you going to expect a person to climb out of jail, to climb out of his mitzrayim, balayla when it's dark and he can't see anything spiritually, he's in a dark place. So you can't, the Chacham say you can't expect that. Chachamim say that there is a maila in iskafia and a maila in ishapcha. There's a maila in crushing the Yetzer Hara and a maila in turning the Yetzer Hara around, that he should become a Yetzer Tov. And therefore, the avoided now is to crush the Yetzer Hara. When Mashiach will come, the Yetzer Hara will turn into a Yetzer Tov, will turn into good. So, but we're also going to have the mile of iskafia. But the ikir, like the Gemara says, the ikir is going to be mentioning about Yetzias Mitzrayim, but derech tofel, we're going to mention, that's what the Gemara says in the end, the first paragraph of Masechet Berachos, the ikir is going to be mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, and derech tofel will mention also, I'm sorry, the ikir is going to be about Mashiach, and derech tofel about going out of Mitzrayim. But Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah and Zoma said no. Pasha, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah said the same thing. They said no. They said even Balayla Yid could has the koyach to go in Mitzrayim. Chachamim said no, it's not shaykh. Roiv people can't do that. That's if you say it's a machloikis. If you say it's not a machloikis, so you have to say that be'emes is everything is true. You can go out Mitzrayim by day and by night, and there's a mile and a skafi and a mile and a hapch. It's just what happened. Lo zachisi, I didn't have the schus to be able to really do it, to make it happen.
That at night it should
That
be
at
out.
night. what happened? And Rabbi ben Azariah, Gemara tells a story. We spoke about it many times. We learned in the Gemara that Rabbi Gamliel a little too much, and they decided enough with this guy. And they were Meman and Rabbi ben Azariah instead of Rabbi Gamliel as a Nasi. And instead of Rabbi ben Azariah has a lot of yichus, Seder Ezra, he's also wealthy, he's also Talmid Chochem, he's Alamados, so they put him as a Nasi.
He was 17, huh?
He was only
That's after
17.
Elizabeth Horkins?
No. That was after the argument that Rabbi Gamliel had with Rabbi Yeshua, and he insulted him one time too many. So
Is it tomorrow?
the Gemara Brachas, yeah. So we're learning the Gemara, right?
Yeah.
So now, Ba'oisa Yom. So Rashi says that Harei Kiven Shivim Shana. He wasn't really Shivim. It's just that his wife told him, how you're going to become a Nasi. In order to be a Nasi, you have to have a beard with white hair coming down your beard. And it was a miracle that he got the white in his beard overnight. It's given a
Smart wife, yeah. That's a smart wife.
Yeah.
The wife doesn't want it to have white hair.
But you want him to be Nasi.
Yeah.
At 17. Think about it.
So what happened? Oisa Yom, he became a Nasi. So the Rebbe says that's the Remez here. The Remez is that on that day that he became a Nasi, he till then was Lo Zachisi. Lo Zachisi doesn't mean he didn't win. He didn't have the schus to be able to help a Yid, even when he's in a situation of Laila, be able to pull him out of Mitzrayim. But now that Oisa Yominu Nasi, a Nasi is Netzutza Shel Yaakov Avinu, like the Shalosh says, he became a Nasi of Klal Yisrael. And by the way, there was a learning in Rambam yesterday. We learned a little bit about the story of the Nasi. Hillel Azokim was a Nasi, and from the days of Hillel Azokim, they made a special takon that smicha only happens through the Nasi. So, now that he was a Nasi, and that day that now was Zocha. What's Pshat Zocha according to this Pshat in these Rishonim? Zocha doesn't mean I won. I had this chus to be able to help another Jew that even though by him it's not Yom, it's Midas Laila, it's a finster, it's a tunkel, it's a cow. And still I help him out that he should have a personal Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's the Pshat. The Rebbe said many more things in that Farbrengen, and one of the things that the Rebbe finished off the Farbrengen was Kol Yemei Chayecha Lahovi Li Moisa Mashiach. That the tachlis of every day in my life has to be what? Lahovi Li Moisa Mashiach.
You have to leave now.
Lahovi Li Moisa Mashiach. Everything I'm doing, I'm taking a cup of seltzer, I'm thinking, how is this going to bring Mashiach? Everything I do, I'm doing a toy with another Yid. How am I bringing Lahovi Li Moisa Mashiach? So to summarize the Rebbe's word,
It's mean closer to Mashiach.
closer, to bring me closer to Mashiach. So, and I want to add one more nekuda to summarize.
Mashiach comes and said, that
Yeah, maybe that's going to be the machlokes, exactly. So this is the Rebbe's word that now that Rebbe Elazar Mazai became a Nasi, he had the koyach in two things. Number one, that even a Yid that's midas Laila, to be able to help him have Metzias Mitzrayim. Also a Jew that by him it's night, it's dark in his life, to help him, pull him out of his darkness, to have him Metzias Mitzrayim. And the other thing, he was Zoicha now, according to the opinion that Zachisa means not there was an argument. It was also Zoicha to make a connection between Golus and Geula. That Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach, the other pshat in Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach brings, to bring the Yemoisa Mashiach into now. To bring, we should already now feel Yemoisa Mashiach, Lahavi, to bring the Yemoisa Mashiach now. And for this you need, again, it's Sutta Shal Yaakov, and you need a tzaddik that can even bring the Kedusha of Yemoisa Mashiach, that we should start feeling it now.
Why do you want to take over again from Rav Shimon Gamliel?
Because the Chachamim, they wanted to have someone that's a little more kind. Because what happened,
Gamliel was very
Gamliel was very tough. The Gemara says that Reb Gamliel only left the students to Toiche Kebare. There's a tzaddik inside outside.
Yeah.
And Reb Elazar Mazariah said, no, everyone could come to the base medrash. So Reb Gamliel had at the door, he had a guard. that would check that person was teichik about it, that was a good student. And Rebbe Elazar Messiah told the guard, we don't need you anymore. And that day there was 400 more benches that were added in the base of Medrash.
Wow.
So the Rebbe says,
Some say 700. Yeah.
there's a gis in the Gemara, Shaila. But
Excuse me, it's not Rebbe Shimon.
this is Reb Gamliel, not Reb Shem Gamliel.
All right.
So there's a discussion here.
Mhm.
What was Pashtus? The Gemara wants to say a Maila that he did, that it was a Maila, that there was now more of Solomon in the base Medrash. So
Yeah, more Talmidim.
right, so Reb Gamliel by him has to be Teuchik about his hapch. Really, there's no Yetzirah. He's a perfect Talmud.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Azariah said no. We could already we'll bring the days of Mashiach into Golus. Even a Yid which is Nebach, he's still in his own Avodah Hashem in Golus, not Teuchik about it.
No.
He's not pure.
No.
He's not pure. He's still a lot of things to purify. Still, will allow him to come into the base of Medrash. Okay,
But in a way, he had a good idea.
right? Very good. So
Oh, that's when they
the
added all
Rebbe-
the new chairs.
that's what I had the two chairs from the Talmudim. There was a Yid, that there is a Yid who is in the Hebrew Academy of Baltimore. He's a principal. The Benjamin Sadeh. So he said that he was when he was young, he was a teacher in the day school in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay,
Oh, it's his last name?
Sadeh, Benjamin Sadeh. So he was a principal. I mean, a teacher. Now he's a principal in Baltimore. So okay. We came back to New York. It was time to date and to find a Kala. He had being in the talking in the 60s, being in Phoenix, Arizona, which it was not from a Yidden there at that time. So he found a lot of encouragement by corresponding to the Rebbe. The Rebbe gave him a lot of brachas. And after he got married, he moved back to Phoenix. They had a child, and it was time to go home for. This is Tov Shalom at Beis already, 1972. They had a baby, and they wanted to go home from the hospital, and the doctor said, "No, something's not right with the baby." Started telling them all kinds of things that sounded very scary. Said, "You can't take the baby. The baby has to stay in the hospital. When do we come back to get the baby?" So we don't know. We have no idea. Okay. It's very scary. They went home, their first child, and they came home without the child. Brokenhearted. They didn't know what to do. They wrote a letter to the Rebbe. They sent it with express mail. They said that they don't know how long the baby will be away, and they're terrified. They get a call. Few days later, the Rebbe's secretary, the Rebbe circled. The Rebbe said, when they said they don't know how long, the Rebbe said, "Bekorov, he's going to come home." They get a call next day from the hospital. They should come.
Pick him up.
They came to the hospital. And the doctor said, "Oh, we made a mistake. We made observation. Well, it was just sorry. We made a mistake. Everything is good. The baby's perfect. Everything's good. We made a mistake in our diagnosis."
The Rebbe's office called or wrote the letter back?
No, the Rebbe's got the letter, but they called him with the answer. So he was very excited about this, and the baby Taka with Baruch Hashem came home, was healthy and everything. They felt it was like a miracle. It's not stam that they were thinking in their mind that the doctors didn't diagnose anything wrong, that they had the right diagnosis, and
It's changed.
yeah,
You have to smile with the Rebbe's help.
yeah. So they said, "You know what? We'll go to Brooklyn. Go to Brooklyn, say thank you to the Rebbe." So they came to Brooklyn. They come to Brooklyn. Yeah. Alex.
They came to Brooklyn.
Hello.
They come with the baby.
They came with the baby. They came with the baby to Brooklyn, and they stayed.
That's in the 60s.
This is 1972, and they're staying in Flatbush for Shabbos. And Sunday they came to 770 to say thank you to the Rebbe for saving the baby. They didn't realize it was a kvias of this year on Lamed base. So Sunday was Yud Alf Nissen, the Rebbe's birthday. So 70's packed. The Rebbe's birthday was a big Fabrengen. Yeah. I remember the first Fabrengen I remember that it was huge was Shnas HaShmonim. It was a few years after that. I remember this is 19
base is 70.
yeah. No, I remember Tafshin 82. The Rebbe's Yom Haledes and the Fabrengen 770. It was so packed. It was packed to the doors, and it was like smoke was coming up in the air. And
Wow.
if you know, unfortunately, my Achilles heels. I don't always come in time. I didn't come in time. I had a great place to Yosemite, but I didn't come in time to my place. So now I have to get to my place. It was a big job. I climbed through, but I lost a shoe. So I stood.
There's no way to go back.
I never found that shoe, but I just stood at that Fabrengen with only one shoe. So anyway, back to so they found us a Fabrengen, fine. So they were very excited. She went back home. He stayed at the Fabrengen. After Fabrengen, the Fabrengen like that would finish 1 o'clock in the morning. He went to the Rebbe's secretary. He wants to say thank you to the Rebbe. Said thank you to the Rebbe. I'm sorry, but Mamish, the Rebbe said you were on the phone. The Rebbe saved the baby. He said, okay, come tomorrow night, but I'm Mamish, you could walk in, walk out. You just go into the Rebbe's office, say thank you, and you're coming out. Okay. He came the next night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. He had Ziyachidas. He went in. He kept his word. He said, thank you very much. He saved our baby. And he was about to leave. The Rebbe asked him, can I ask you for a favor? He said, yeah, sure. So he said, go in. I have a shlichus from you. Can you go into Rabbi Chadikov, my secretary's office? No problem. Goes to Rabbi Chadikov's office. The Rebbe sent me. He gives him a box of matzah. Yeah. What am I supposed to do with the matzah? Bring it to Taylor. Taylor, Texas. A little town in Texas. He said, I'm going back home to Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, you want me to tell the Rebbe you're not doing the shlichus? No. Give me the matzah. Fine. So now they're going to the airport, and now they're thinking they're going to catch a flight from New York to Taylor, from Taylor to. There's no flights to Taylor.
I've even heard of it.
Didn't heard of it. They don't know what you're talking about.
Small town.
Okay, they said, you know what? We'll go back home to Phoenix. When we get home, we'll figure out what to do. They were exhausted. They fell asleep on the plane. 2 hours in the flight. The captain gets on the PA from having an emergency landing. Where were we landing? Taylor. They went out of the plane. It was a tiny, tiny airport. It was just like they just opened the lights for them. It's a tiny airport. A couple technicians there. So he went off the plane and he realized, well, he never asked who he's supposed to give the matzah to.
Yeah.
He looked around, there's no one in the airport. He sees a couple. And the couple came there and they don't look religious, but they look Jewish. And they say, oh, were you sent us from the Lubavitcher Rebbe with the matzah? Wow. He said, yes. What? He gave them the matzah and they left.
You went back.
I thought they rigged it.
The technicians fixed the plane and they came back home, and that was it. He says they never even thought to ask them who are they, what was it, but that was it.
That was a thank you to the Rebbe.
And Minu Shemayim with the Rebbe's help.
So you see that's a pshat that Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah said. Lo zachis shetomitzias betzrayim baleilas achadosh ben zoymo. What does it mean? I didn't have the zechus, according to the Tashbetz. I didn't have the zechus to help another Jew bayom when it's alive, when a Jew is religious, he's good. Oh, zachisi, to teach him Torah. But a Jew that's midas laila, that it's the middle of the night for him, he's the middle of the night spiritually. Lo zachisi, I didn't have the zechus to pull him out of a situation. Now, that day that they made him a Nasi, that day, the Belazim and Azariah, they made him a Nasi. The day he became a Nasi, that's the day he got that power to help another Jew, even though when it was Balayla. By the way, there's someone that comes to the shul sometimes, and he has a spectacular story. So I have to ask him next time he comes to tell it. But the Nakuda is, he was speeding in crazy 90 miles per hour in the mountains years ago. We're talking somewhere in the 60s. And he was pulled over by cops. and they no, they're coming. They bring him right away because they want to have the money. These guys want to have the money right away, so they brought him to court of peace, and I remember which town, one of those shtetl in the mountains, and they brought him in front of the judge. The standard thing is that you don't walk out of there before you pay $500. You pay your taxes. So the judge says, "Come with me." And he takes him into his chamber. He's a judge. He was a public school teacher. By night, he's a judge.
Night court.
Yeah. So he tells them that his father was a Frum Yid. They came from Europe, and he sees that they're yeshiva bochrim. So he says, "Don't worry, I'll just give you a slap in the wrist, $50, but make sure you're not caught again." He came back to New York, and a few days later, he had yechidus for his birthday by the Rebbe. And he told the Rebbe the story. Okay. A couple months go by. Rabbi Jacobson, who started the yeshiva Adar Torah for Baalei Tshuva, comes into 770 and he says, the Rebbe said that you should drive up right now. That judge, remember that judge that gave you the $50 fine instead of the $500? Here's a box of matzah from the Rebbe.
Go give it to him.
And go give it to him. He says, no, okay. And it's funny to hear this. The guy says, no, I'm not going. I'm not interested. He said, what do you mean you're not interested? You're going right now. The Rebbe said you're going, you're going. So he went, and he said it was unbelievable. The guy was like, wow, matzahs from Lubavitcher Rebbe, and then they put on film with him, and it was like, and he was like so taken by the fact that he got a box of matzah. Okay, let's go quickly to another thing. We said there's 4 sons. The 4th son is Sheni Yedei Elishel. He doesn't know how to ask. Why is he the 4th son? L'chayda the Rasha is the worst. The answer is the Rasha is not that bad. The Rasha learned in yeshiva, and he's angry. He's angry. The Rasha is angry. He has complaints. My Rebbe in yeshiva hit me. This is what happened. That happened. He's angry. The Rasha is angry. The bottom line is, if you can get to the Rasha, he'll do tshuva. It's fine. The Sheni Yedei Elishel, the problem is, even when you're going to teach him, he doesn't know anything. It's a very big thing. It's a very big problem. The Rebbe says Sheni Yedei Elishel doesn't mean he's a dumbbell. Could be he's a very smart guy. He's in business. He's the most shrewd businessman. If you're going to tell him you're a dumbbell, you don't understand the stock market, you're going to get insulted. If you tell him you don't understand business, touched his ego. But if you tell him, you don't understand the Shagas Aya, Gemara, you don't understand, he's not insulted. Oh, man. He doesn't care to ask it because it doesn't mean anything to him. He's apathetic. That's the problem. The Rasha, he's angry, but he's alive. The Sheni Yedei Elishel, the problem with is he doesn't care to ask. Sheni Yedei doesn't necessarily mean he's a dumbbell. Sheni Yedei, this doesn't care about Judaism. Why is he not asking?
So why he come to the Seder?
Why is he not asking?
Why he come to the Seder?
Oh.
By the way,
Like my Zayd always said this story, that there was a boy, they suggested a girl for him. So he said, okay, fine, he'll date her. So they said, it's not quite a problem. This is a toiba, she's deaf. I don't care. Zablinda, she can't see. I don't care. She's hunchback. I don't care. You don't care? I'm not going to marry her anyway, so why do I care? So if you're not going to marry anyway, you don't care. But if it's your wife, you care. So the problem with the Sheni Yedei Elishel is the problem of Judaism today is that to a lot of people, Rahman al-Islam, they don't care. They don't have. It's not like 100 years ago they had tinus, they were angry, they were. The problem is that the Sheni Yedei Elishel, they don't care to ask. So the answer that there has to be at psachloi. We have to open them up that they should. What does it psachloi? At psachloi. The Rishonim say at psachloi. What does it mean at psachloi? So the Rishonim say the Shiboyle Aleket, student of Rashi, says Aseiloi Pesach Kidei Sheyovim v'Yishol Kamod Atem Psach Pichel Ilam. What is Psach Pichel Ilam? It's a pasuk of Mishnah. The Gemara Sanhedrin says from here that we learn that sometimes the Dayan is sitting, or the 3 Dayanim are sitting, and a person comes in, 2 people come in to argue, and one guy is so angry that he can't articulate his tinus. So usually the Bezdin is not allowed to help someone. Oh, you meant to say this, you have to listen, you're not supposed to say anything. But there's a mitzvah, psach pichel ilam, if you see that one side really has an argument, but he's like, so the blood goes rushing into his head, and he's lost his rationale, that you have to be nice to him and help him. So here, if he doesn't care about Judaism, that's the biggest problem. You have to help him out, and you have to open up his interest that he should want to ask questions. Okay, story. This is an unbelievable story.
How about this on the Lodge Rabbi?
We'll get to that. Let's finish with the fourth. Exactly. Let's finish with the fourth. So the Rebbe came, one of the last boats from Lisbon to America. At 1941 in the summer, he managed to get here. One of the last boats, mamish. Yeah, from Portugal. He is mamish lucky to come here, and his life was saved, him and his wife. 2 days later, Shabbos, and his father-in-law asked that he should fabring. So we know that Rebbe was very quiet and to himself, but if his father-in-law told him to do, he did. At that fabrengen, the Rebbe took l'chaim, and the Rebbe said a story. The story he said was that the Baal Shem Tov was once on Yom Kippur, and he saw that there was a kitrug against. There's going to be a terrible year for Jews, and he tried to daven with the most kavanah he could. The Rebbe said the problem was that the kitrug was against the Baal Shem Tov himself too, because the Baal Shem Tov came up with this idea. Jews were very poor, and they used to live in the big cities, and there was 300 peddlers. And what were 300 peddlers going to do? So people were very poor. So the Baal Shem Tov said, let the Jew go out in the little towns, and they'll start fishing, and they'll start doing this and that, and they'll work on the field, and they'll make money, and they'll live a good life, a normal life. The problem was, in those places, the little towns, there was no shul, so there was no cheder. So there was a kitrug in the Baal Shem Tov. He's sending out Jews to live in these places where there is no Jewish life, and the children are going to grow up to be Amoritz. So the Baal Shem Tov's tefillah wasn't helping anymore because the kitrug was against the Baal Shem Tov. And towards Ne'ilah, the Baal Shem Tov sees, the gates are closing and nothing's working. And he went into an unbelievable dveikus, and everyone could see that the Baal Shem Tov is somewhere else. And they realized that this is a tough situation. They started to cry and they started to daven. There was a kid that came from a little town. There was an Amoritz. The kid knew nothing, but the kid was was a shepherd, and he loved the goats and the sheep and the cow. He knew, but he loved the rooster. He loved the rooster, and he could mimic a cow. He could make a cow like a cow. You would think it's a real cow, sheep, a goat, but the rooster, he loved to mimic the rooster. And when he was seeing everyone cry, he started screaming, "Kukariku! God in heaven, help the Jews!" So a couple of the Mispal and Mishul picked him up, and they wanted to show him where the door is. The old shaman said, "No, he's a kid, don't bother him. That moment, the Baal Shem Tov's face came back to normal. They finished davening quickly, and it was all. After Yom Kippur, the Baal Shem Tov said, when this kid screamed Kukariku, it broke all the kitrugim in heaven, and the Jews will have a good year. Wow. So this was the first story that Rebbe said when he came to America to Fabrengen. It's a very interesting thing, because this is really very telling for the Rebbe's avoda in the United States of America, which is the Jew, which is She'eni de Elishal. If you think about it, what's the point of the story? That the kitrug was against the Baal Shem Tov, that he's sending Jews in little towns, but then in heaven they saw that this is a kid that's coming from a little town, and he prays from his whole heart that the kukariku that he said was with his whole heart. So that broke the kitrug against the Baal Shem Tov, and also broke the kitrug altogether.
And he wasn't Jewish.
Jewish kid.
Oh, he was.
Jewish kid. Okay, very quick. Another two things, very quick. B'mesei ma'at, we say in the Agoda. We say later in the Agoda that Mesei Ma'at, and we bring a pasuk, and we say that the Jews were now kechoich v'shamayim l'roiv, and then we say that Kamosh Nemar ve'ever alayich ve'erech mizbosesas b'damoich ve'emalach b'damayich ve'emalach b'damayich re'ov v'ketzemach hasod nesatich v'tirbi v'tigbili v'tavoi b'adei adoim shadayim nachoinu v'sorech tzimeich v'at erem ve'erya. What does it mean you're naked and bare? It's a whole pedic in Yecheskel design. What's the one going over here? We're saying virov, that the Jews multiplied a lot, virov. So we're saying even though the Jews suffered, the Eibishter says, and the Eibishter made that they were Vava, they multiplied the Jewish children. And then we say, means like that these babies, as I'll say that these babies, they tried to kill them and they ended up in the field. And they had a rock, that they had milk from the rock, and they had honey in the rock, but they grew up.
What time was that?
And when they were Mitzrayim, Yecheskel says when they grow up in the field, they didn't have At Edom Ve'er, they were naked. But
What's the dime again over there?
the breast.
Right.
So
The mother.
no, the girls, they didn't have a mother.
The stone.
Yeah.
But it's a mushal. What's the nimshal?
Stone?
Yeah,
What's the mother?
that the babies didn't have a mother, but they got milk from a stone in the field. But really, it's a mushal. The nimshal is that even though the Jews are naked and bare, that means they didn't have mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is the malbush. The malbushim of a person is the mitzvahs. And what does it mean? They were naked and bare, that they didn't have the schusim and they didn't have the mitzvahs. So still the Eibishter took them out of Mitzrayim. Even though, but the Eibishter wanted they should have a little bit of a schus, so the Eibishter gave them mizvasesas b'damoich, dam mila, and dam Pesach. He gave them the two mitzvahs that they should check the korban Pesach and take the blood and put on the door, and also they should do the korban themselves to do the mitzvahs mila, and these two mitzvahs, that was, even though they were naked of mitzvahs, they had two mitzvahs. We had here once a Fabrengen for Yudalef Nissen many years ago, and we had Rabbi Moshe Feller from Minnesota.
Really?
Rabbi Feller said, Yeah. Rabbi Feller said a story like this, unbelievable. He said that he once wrote an article in the local newspaper in Minnesota, a story that the Baal Shem Tov said that when a person faints and you want to wake him up, you scream his name in his ear. That's whatever he gave a nimshal about the Jewish people are now in a slumber, and you need to scream their name in their ear. And the Rebbe erased, in English it said scream, the Rebbe erased scream, and the Rebbe wrote whisper. Whisper. You don't scream at another Jew. Whisper. So even though a Jew looks like he's naked and bare, he has no mitzvahs, you don't scream at him. You have to whisper into his ears. Another quick story from Arav Galinsky, the Maggid of Bnei Brak. Terrific story. Tavshin Chazayim, after the Jews had an unbelievable success and they won the war, which was a 6-day war, unbelievable. So he says there was a rabbi in Ramat Sharon, the Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein, his brother is the Rosh Yeshiva today in Ponovich.
The one that's
Rabbi Gershon Edelstein, yeah. So it's a Libod L'chaim.
Yeah.
So there was a whole bunch of Ketzinim and Tzahal, and he made a big kenes for them. Big kenes. Rabbi Yaakov Edelstein was an unbelievable person. He was a Rav, but he actually worked together with the Shliach in Ramat Sharon. He was like a very special character. Anyway, they brought Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky to speak. He was supposed to they had a big hall and was supposed to speak. There's a Kitzanim in Tzahal, officers in the IDF. So when he came, they told him that they changed the program. It's supposed to be that he was giving a drasha. It's going to be a symposium with questions and answers.
He's going to tell a story
So he said, gets up at the mic. He says, you said there's going to be a drasha, now a symposium. That's not what I came for. Can I tell a story? They said, yeah, you can tell a story. He said, there was a story once in the city of Poizna. The Rav was Rabbi Akiva Eger. He's the one of the Baal Koida, the Baal Tekeh that would blow shofar, Rosh Hashanah. He became close to the Maskilim, and he became not so religious. And Rabbi Akiva Eger felt that he was not the right person to blow shofar. He fired him. He got another Baal Tekeh. This guy was angry. So he went to the mayor of the city. He was friends with the mayor. He said, the rabbi sacked me. I had for years and years a chazaka that I blow the shofar in the big shul in Poizna. He sacked me for no reason. You know why? Because I became friends with the enlightened Jews, and he wants the Jews to stay like in the dark ages. So the mayor of the city called Rabbi Akiva. True. Rabbi Akiva says, I didn't fire him. I gave him a promotion. I don't understand. You know, on the holiest day of the year is Yom Kippur. You know that? The mayor says, yeah, I know. When we finish Yom Kippur, at the end of the whole thing is someone blows shofar. I gave him the job to blow shofar at the end of Yom Kippur. This little job, Rosh Hashanah, I gave someone else. The mayor says, okay, I'm sorry, Rabbi. He calls back that guy. He says, what? You got a promotion. What should he start telling? He should tell the mayor that the Rosh Hashanah is there. I see him kipping is a bit man. What's he supposed to say? So he said, Rosh Hashanah, they blow 100 sounds. But Yom Kippur is only one sound. So it's not a promotion. So the mayor says, come on, you fool. Once the shofar is in your head, you can blow 200 sounds. So the Yaakov Galinsky said, now I have the mic in my hand. Never mind any symposium. I'm going to tell you what I have to tell you. So the Yaakov Galinsky said, then he understood what it says in the Agoda. It says that the child asks a question. We say, the Gross says it means you tell him all the Hilchas Pesach until the last one. The guy asked you a little question, and you're telling him all of a sudden, you're teaching him Mishnah Berurah, Chelak, the whole thing from cover to cover. So Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky said, listen, they give you the mic, don't stop talking until the lights are off. I'm going to try not to do that tonight. Just one more.
He's still alive, Rabbi Galinsky?
No, he passed away last year. At the end of that God, we say, "B'chol dor v'dor chayim adam lidas esatzmei ki yotzim Mitzrayim." We have to visualize as if we went out of Mitzrayim right now. Mamish, the Alter Rebbe says that every day when a person in Avodas Hashem breaks his boundaries and breaks the boundaries of Yetzer Hara, he's going out of Mitzrayim. He's going out of his limitations every day. The problem is that Rebbe says that we have in the Gemara, it says in Brachos, "Ein chovish at mater atzmei mibeis asurim." If your hands are tied up, how are you supposed to untie yourself? Someone else has to untie you. So how do you tell the person, if my hands are tied and I'm in jail, how are you telling me that I have to untie myself? How does that work? So the Rebbe says the answer is simple. We know there's a story. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in jail. They thought that they would do the worst to him. At the end, there was a world pressure and they released them, but they wanted to send them away for 10 years. At 3 years, they're going to send them away to Tastarama. He went to Golos. So then, when he was in the train station going away, they allowed him to go out of jail, and they went to the train station in Petersburg. So what did he do at the train station? He stood there and he said the Sikha. What was the Sikha? There's a famous Sikha. Here's these are the words that he said. Even though we're now in Golos, everyone must know this. As nur unsere Gufim seinen übergegeben in Golus. Only our bodies are in Golus. Aber unsere Neshamas hat man in Golus nicht vertrieben. But our Neshama are never in Golus. So the heck what the Soviets, this is 1927.
And they were there.
Yes,
the Soviets were there.
They said, we have to know that when it comes to Torah, mitzvahs, Minhag Yisrael, no one has any opinion on a Jew. No one has any opinion on a Jew. We have to say with the biggest strength, with Yiddish Akshonos. So therefore, a person has to know that if I think I'm in Golos, but my neshama never went to Golos. So therefore, when I strengthen my nefesh elokis, my nefesh elokis will help me because my nefesh elokis never went to Golos. It's only I'm in Golos, but my nefesh elokis never went to Golos. So if I strengthen the power of nefesh elokis, he'll help untie me, and we'll be able to go out of Golos. Maybe she should help that we should go out of Golos, and if we're zoichet to do the Seder with Bis Mashiach Tzidkenu, Hopefully, we'll be saying all these stories and Dvar Toides in Yerushalayim Eir HaKodesh. And not only will we be eating the matzah and the maror, but we'll also be eating the korban Pesach.
Me.
The paper you can take. Listen,
Every midday.
I'm taking one also.
It's a little tiring. Gimel. Third points. What is the word? In Hebrew, mean Tyler?
Tyler, matzah, Tyler, the city in Texas. Yeah. Yeah, Tyler, Texas.